Well, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, it is great to be here with you, Cable. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, where are you joining us from today?
I am in the great state of North Carolina. Although knowing you're in Texas, I'll just simply say we like to call ourselves Little Texas.
Yeah, well, and I like North Carolina a lot. I've never hunted there, but I would like to shoot one of those monster black bears you guys have up there.
We do. We have an assortment. If it can be hunted, I think the only thing we don't really have is elk and moose, but
Mm,
about everything else we've imported, and you can hunt it here.
yeah, yeah. Well, cool. So, are you from North Carolina originally?
Born and raised, I am just north of Charlotte in a town called Statesville off of Lake Norman. And
Okay.
so, yeah,
And did you grow up hunting or fishing? Was that part of North Carolina culture
yeah,
growing up where
absolutely.
you did?
Yeah, my uncle, my brothers, and I, we all hunted and fished. And, it was really, we saw it as more of a connection to our family and our heritage. And, my family's settled here in the area and been here for several generations, and so it's a great pastime for us.
And what is your favorite thing to hunt?
Yeah, I would say since spending a lot more time in Texas for the last several years now, um, hog hunting has become my favorite.
Uh-huh. You
I
guys don't
love it.
have any feral hogs in North Carolina?
No, we don't.
Not
But
yet.
I love barbecue, and so I don't know if it's I
Uh-huh.
don't know if it's the love of barbecue or the love of the thrill of the hunt, but it's a lot of fun.
So have you just sat in like a stand and hunted them or spot and stock or hunted them with thermals?
Yeah, so thermals from a stand is how I've done it so far. But
Uh-huh.
I hear from our buddy Cody Robertson that I can get on top of a Jeep and I can go chase them and hunt them that way. So I'm looking forward to
We don't discriminate. However you want to shoot them,
that.
you shoot them. I was sitting in a stand. It was in January, in West Texas, and this pig comes in after dark, big boar, and I shot it, falls over dead, and I wait for my buddy to bring his truck, and so we walk up there together, and we get up to this pig, and we're looking at him with our headlamps, and we both just start dying laughing because he only has 3 legs. Yeah, and
Oh,
so it was an old, like, you couldn't even tell there was a wound there anymore. It was just like a little nub where I don't know if it got shot off or I mean, it seemed like it happened when he was an adult. And there's
yeah.
a pig that size doesn't have any natural predator in Texas. I mean, even a mountain lion wouldn't take that thing on. So to me, it was just like probably somebody shot that thing off at some point. But he was just thriving, like 200+ pound boar, and I couldn't even tell through the
Wow.
thermal that he was missing a appendage, but he dang sure was. It was kind of funny.
Well, they're not really long legs anyhow,
Mm-mm.
so I mean it'd be kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
Um, so cool. So you've spent some time here, done some hunting in Texas. What is deer hunting culture like in North Carolina?
It's a lot different. We don't have the high fences,
Uh-huh.
and so that part's quite a bit different. Rack sizes are vastly different. Deer weight, depending on where you're at, might be a little different. The varieties, we're only whitetail,
Hmm.
and so that's another part. Some of the more exotic, like the axis and that sort of thing. You can get that you know variety in Texas, but there's still a lot of clubs. Mostly, that's where we hunt now is on club land. But used to be we had some old family farmland that we would hunt, and you know
Mm.
typical bait and stand type thing.
Yeah.
A lot of bow hunting. That's a big season here. We did a lot of muzzle loading growing up, and high powered rifle is really kind of going by the wayside on any farm land because we're just so overdeveloped now.
Mm.
It's really becoming more and more unsafe. So you have to get out to some of the clubs to have safe high powered rifle type hunting.
Hmm. So I mean, we don't really have that here. I think most people still hunt. You know, if you have a deer lease in Texas, it's probably big enough for a rifle,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I have least 20 acres close to the house just for archery only. That my county I live
Hmm.
in is archery only, but that's because it's overdeveloped. You know,
Yeah.
there's just not a lot of real estate left for the wild critters, especially deer. So, um, clubs. So, what would like a membership at a club cost? That's so foreign to me. I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean they can range anywhere from, a really small private club that's, 50 acres or so, somewhere 500 to $1,000, a year, to some clubs you're, 700-800 bucks a month.
Hmm.
And so it really depends on the club size, how they're
What would a
structured.
big piece of land be?
Yeah, if you're on one of the big clubs where you're looking at anywhere north of 500 acres, where you kind of more or less have your own plot that's your plot and your
Hmm.
stand that you kind of more or less own and manage. Those are the $500 a month plus clubs,
Okay,
and
right on.
you're even when it's maybe off season, you're working that land. There's gun ranges on the property where you can come out and zero your rifles and that sort of thing.
Okay. Okay. So after high school, you entered the sign up for the National Guard.
Yeah, actually, I was still in high school. I was a junior in high school, and that we had an opportunity through what's called a split option program, where I could go to basic training the summer of my junior year of high school.
Mm.
And then after basic training, went back, returned to my hometown, finished high school, graduated, and then went off to my advanced training, and then got my unit assignment.
And I don't know if the average American citizen is as familiar with the National Guard and
Mhm.
what they do compared to, say, the Navy, Air Force, Army, Marines. Tell us a little bit about the National Guard specifically.
Yeah, so really, really interesting. There's a lot of change, especially post 9/11 in the National Guard. Really, from the end of World War II till 9/11, there were only a select couple of units that ever got activated for anything. Um, and most of those that were activated ended up doing stateside work on active duty basis, while those active duty units were deployed into combat zones. But the National Guard has a dual purpose mission. One is to serve the state as what one might consider the state militia, or
Mm.
for Office of State and Emergency Management, flood relief, hurricane relief, things of that nature. And they work for the governor under that mission. But they also serve at the pleasure of the president of the United States for active military engagements, combat engagements. And so my particular National Guard unit was the 30th Infantry Brigade. And we were the top rated National Guard unit in the nation for activation and mobilization. And so just after 9/11, as a combat arms brigade, we were activated and deployed into Iraq and northern Iraq, and we were directly attached to the First Infantry Division, and we ran and operated an operational area where essentially our brigade was responsible for all the activities in that area, which again, since World War II, was the first National Guard unit to have that distinction. And so most units are augmenting active duty units. In other words, maybe they're short 200 soldiers, and it's that National Guard unit will assign 200 soldiers to that active duty unit, and they'll go out and they'll fall into those ranks, and they'll be a part of that. And so our unit was a little bit different, and we were really fortunate to to be able to serve, and glad that we were able to do so, both under the president and our governor.
Okay. But before your deployment, so you primarily would deal with like hurricane or floods or
Yeah.
um, okay.
So we trained one distinction for the National Guard that I think is lost on a lot of people. I think, oh, you get to go play Army, 2 days a month, a weekend a month, and then 2 weeks during the summer. Sounds like fun. The reality is, our National Guard and Reserve components, they have to maintain the same standards of competency and their job function, and they only do that by training 1 weekend a month and typically between 2 to 3 weeks per summer,
Mm,
depending on what type of unit they were. And so with that, you're also serving under the governor. So when there's a hurricane, your unit can be activated to go provide security or evacuation. I did hurricane relief missions for both Floyd and Fran. We did flood relief work as well, during times of
mm,
other types of natural disasters.
okay. So then you're deployed to Iraq in 2004. And so,
Mhm.
and the other thing I want to mention, so throughout this journey with the National Guard, your buddy Dale Beatty is right there with you. Did you go to high school with Dale, or did y'all meet in the National Guard?
No, we enlisted into the National Guard about the same time. We were about 2 weeks apart,
Hmm.
and so we met in the National Guard. We attended rival high schools,
Okay.
and so it was really interesting. We maintained that competitiveness all through our time in the service, and so we were really fast friends, but highly competitive with one another, and carried that all the way through Iraq.
And so you guys joined in like 96, somewhere
We
around there.
did.
And
Yep.
so 2004, you're deployed together and you're in the same Humvee that gets hit.
Yep.
Okay. And so I'm sure, and maybe it wasn't the worst day of your life, but I'm assuming it probably was. And you can share as much, detail as you want to regarding that, but I'm sure folks would like to know what happened.
Yes, I'll give you the story here. So November 14th, 2004, we were about 10 o'clock or so. We were given a mission for the next day, and there was a convoy of fuel tankers that needed to get into Fallujah. And so we were in northern Iraq in a town called Baji, Iraq, at a little forward base there in Baji. And so our job was to clear that route. There had been the report that came through for the mission brief was that there had been 18 landmines had detonated on that route in the 7 days prior. And so our job was to clear that route so that the tankers could get into the base there in Fallujah.
Mm,
And we were set to have a EOD unit with us, and the EOD unit ended up getting uh, delayed at another base on their way to meet with us. And the fuel tanker unit was already en route, and so we were really left with no choice but to continue the mission without the explosive ordinances unit with us. And so,
So
there's
those are the
really
people that find the bombs?
yeah, those they were essentially the ones that were supposed to find the bombs, and we were their
Oh.
protection while they found the bombs. And
So
so,
nobody's protecting you now.
so well, how do you send a group full of grunts out to go find bombs? Well,
Right.
you get in your vehicle and you drive. And so we went on down the route, and we made it all the way to the end. Met a couple of Marine units. They turn around. They were going back to their base. We turn around. We're going back to ours. And after we were about, I don't know, probably 3 miles or so back into our route, returning back to our base, is when our vehicle struck two anti-tank landmines, and it resulted in Dale losing both of his legs. I suffered back injury and traumatic brain injury, and naturally some post-traumatic stress. And
Uh-huh.
two other guys that were with us suffered similar injuries to mine. And that
Mm,
was kind of the start of our story, if you will, and where we got to where we're at now.
mm-hmm. So you guys passed by these mines on the way in and then hit them on the way back?
Yeah, it's really unclear exactly how that happened. There's suspicion that the mines were put in place after we passed the first time.
Uh,
While we were at the end of the route, we had done a what we called a hasty checkpoint, where essentially we stopped every car that passed by and searched them and interrogated their drivers and passengers and that sort of thing. So we were in that vicinity for about an hour, and so plenty enough time for the landmines to have been planted.
mm.
um, it's just really unclear exactly how that happened.
But you have to be thinking, we're good. We made it through. I mean,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, we were ready to get back and chill out. It was at this point, it was about 11 o'clock in the morning,
mm,
and typically, that's really starting the hottest part of the day, and so temperatures were, even in November, starting to peak over 105, 110.
mm.
So
Wow. Okay. So Dale spends a year in Walter Reed, and you both, I'm assuming, are sent home at that point. I mean, well, Dale's in the hospital. I don't know
yeah.
what you actually went through.
Yeah, so Dale, all three of us, there's four of us in the vehicle. Three of us ended up going to the field hospital, the cache, and and then we're all three transported up to the medical brigade, kind of to the hospital, if you will. And so at that point, that's really when we were separated out. Dale was the next day sent over to Longstuhl in Germany, where he spent about a week in Germany getting stabilized. Myself and my other buddy, Specialist Duckett, we ended up spending about 7 days at the field hospital, and after that, we were basically sent back to our unit on what they called light duty,
Uh-huh.
and our unit was about to redeploy, coming back home, and so it just made sense for us to come on back home with our unit and under our medical team's care. And we go back to our unit, we get our redeployment orders. Somehow along the way, we ended up getting tasked with Division Exfil duty, and so myself and the rest of our squad ended up doing about 100 escort missions after the landmine explosion,
Mm,
and we ended up not returning home until mid-February. And so it was, we spent several more months in country even after the injury.
mm. Wow. Okay. So straight back into the lion's den.
Yeah, it was pretty tough. I remember my sergeant major come to pick me up, and Sergeant Major Aponte, and he had a young private as his driver, and so he picks us up at the field hospital, and we've got to drive to our base. We're leaving one base and driving to another, and this had already been, I had already hit two IEDs at this point, and I'm like, I'm not getting in that vehicle with a private driving. There's no way. And the sergeant major had a few colorful adjectives in front of my name telling me to get in the vehicle. It was quite interesting. It took me a little while to get over the fear of riding in Iraq. I mean, you're just riding down the road one minute, and the next minute you're upside down and you're bleeding. You're riding down the road one minute, and the next minute your buddy's sitting next to you missing body parts.
Yeah.
And it's just out. It seems out of the blue.
Hmm. Mm. So you eventually both make it home, and Dale spends the better part of a year in the hospital,
Yeah.
loses both of his legs, and I guess that was the impotence for starting Purple Heart Homes.
Yeah, it was really interesting. The return home, the path for us was very different for the two of us. I mean, naturally, Dale comes through the medical system, and along the way, he has Korean and Vietnam and World War II vets that are visiting him in the hospital. Some of them amputees, and some of them, just veterans that just
Hmm.
care and they just want to encourage him and support him. And then my return home is, I land in Bangor, Maine at, 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's, February. It's extremely cold, and there's 7 Vietnam veterans that are standing there saluting me, and the rest of our unit as we're getting off the plane. And
Hmm.
I didn't think much of it then, as I'm certain Dale didn't think a whole lot of it at the time either. But you fast forward about 6 months after Dale gets out of the hospital, and he needs an accessible home. Well, I'm a general contractor by trade. It's one of the benefits of being in the National Guard. You kind of have this two, different career paths. You got the military career path, and you got the civilian career as well. I had built homes, for many years at this point, and so Dale and I are talking about the need for an accessible house. The local home builders association gets involved. This local church gets involved. His parents donate some land, and next thing you know, Dale is recipient of a home being built for him to meet the needs for him and his family.
Hmm.
At the end of that project, Dale and I are standing on the back porch, and we're looking out at the crowd of all the people that have come together to help him build his house. And we see these Vietnam veterans wearing hats that say I served in Vietnam, and vests and patches, you know. And it's like, man, look at all these Vietnam vets. And we asked ourselves, well, I wonder who's helping them. And that
Hmm.
became really the point in which we realized that we had an opportunity to right a wrong and to be able to help the generation that was getting left out because their war wasn't popular. They were the ones that were fighting for us to give us the benefits that we had, whether through the VA or through the local community, and the recognition to make sure we were properly welcomed home. And we wanted to really pay it forward by helping that particular generation.
Oh yeah, they were ostracized a lot of the time when they came back.
Yeah.
Um,
I I'll never forget the first Vietnam veteran that we helped, Kevin Smith. We went to his house, and we built a wheelchair ramp for him. And as we were leaving one day, we said, Kevin, we just want to tell you welcome home.
hmm.
And just almost immediately broke down in tears and said, I've been home for over 50 years, and nobody's ever told me welcome home.
Wow, thankless. Society
Yeah,
did not treat those guys well. Like you said, righting a wrong. Um, and I get why the war wasn't popular. That's
yeah,
I think our country has for far too long been meddling in stuff that we shouldn't, and we've spent a lot of American resources and lives, and it's like for what at the end of the day, money.
yeah.
So, but that
Well,
doesn't matter when you're talking about these guys are doing what they're told to do. You did what you were told
yeah,
to do, whether you agree with the war or not. They're fighting for whatever American principles we're willing to send our guys to die for,
that's right.
and
And
that.
I think so often too we miss the fact, and this has really been something over the years that I've come to understand and have some clarity over, is that not every veteran, not every person that wears the uniform ends up in combat.
Mhm.
But there's hundreds, really thousands of men and women that are injured just in training accidents. And so many organizations focus on the severely injured, combat, post 9/11 veterans, and there's people that are out there struggling that sacrificed just being ready to go to combat, whether there
Mhm.
was a war to go serve in or not, justified or not. They were willing to go. They put in the effort to train and to serve, and they deserve our support as well.
Mhm. Yeah, one of my good friends lives down the street. He is in the Air Force Reserves and has been for a long time. Uh, he goes, leaves his family. It doesn't seem like a lot, but once a month he's missing his kids' baseball games or his daughter's volleyball games or whatever it is once a month for 20 something years. You know, it is a sacrifice. And then, like you said, 2 weeks out of the year, he goes to Alaska or does, goes to extended training. That's not, I mean, that's more of a sacrifice than I'm making.
Yeah, I remember when I got out, one of the comments my mom made to me was that I was not allowed to miss another Mother's Day
Hmm.
because every Mother's Day for 10 years I was not home because I was somewhere for the National Guard.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And it's the little things that your
Yeah.
family, sacrifices with as well.
Well, so you guys build houses for veterans. How do you find the folks you want to build the houses for? Is it mostly folks like Dale who are handicapped, or are there homeless people, homeless veterans that are struggling that, you try to help get back on their feet? Talk a little bit about what you guys do as a result of building that first home for Dale.
Yeah, so really our program takes a dual approach to solving for veteran housing needs. And the real crux of it is that we're looking to provide safe, accessible housing for our veteran community as a whole. And so that can happen in two forms. One is home renovations to be able to help a veteran have a wheelchair ramp, an accessible bathroom, a we do some mold mitigation work and when necessary, roof replacements when necessary. We've provided heating systems for veterans in Alaska, as an example, where we found a Korean veteran was heating his home with an open flame propane heater because he couldn't
Mm-hmm.
afford to replace his heating and air system. He's living on a fixed income.
Oh.
And so that's our aging in place program. Our new home program, the way that works is essentially we either have our manufactured tiny homes or we have housing partners, and that program is a hand up, not a handout. We set the veteran up on a mortgage for 50% of the appraised value of the home.
Mm.
The other 50% is a gift in the form of released equity over the course of 5 years that the veteran lives in the house, pays their first mortgage, and pays their taxes and pays their insurance. And so we try and make it, extremely affordable, but we do so without stripping the pride of home ownership away from the veteran. We want them to contribute and understand that they can still provide for their families.
Mm.
And really, we do all of this work, as a nonprofit organization through partnerships with communities, whether it's individuals, businesses. Really, we live here in Statesville, and with that being said, we want the veterans to have a relationship with the people in their community. And so the housing is a necessity, but it's also a vehicle to which relationships can be built between the veteran and their community, just like with Dale.
Mm.
When his community came together to build him a home, it built lasting relationships for him. And I still have people, come up to me today that will talk to me about that. And
Mm.
it was unfortunate we lost Dale to blood clot in 2018. And but he enjoyed that home for 10 years,
Mm.
and 10 plus years. And with that, there's people that still come up, and they they care about his family. They talk about his family. They want to know that they're still living in that home and still benefiting from that. And so it's those relationships that we're really trying to build. And we hear about veteran suicide all the time. 22 a day. You can hardly go anywhere and not hear about it. And people care. That's why they're talking about it. But the reality is, the best way for us to combat veteran suicide is by having relationships with veterans. that they
Mhm.
have a safe place to go to talk to somebody, that they know that there's people that care about them, that want to help them, that they're, afforded job opportunities, that they're connected into their local church, that they are able to have a safe home for their families.
Mm.
It's the basics that we're really trying to provide and support.
And so, if someone listening wanted to help support what you guys do and your mission, um, I'm sure you take donations too. It wouldn't just be from the local community.
Oh no, that's right. And I say local community. I'm speaking, for wherever you are at,
Mm.
wherever the veteran is at, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they're in Alaska, or Puerto Rico, the lower 48. We're going to go help the veterans wherever they're at.
Yeah.
We work all across the country. But, we as a nonprofit, we rely on those contributions from individuals, from businesses, right? It's a partnership.
Mm.
If you want to start a chapter of Purple Heart Homes in your community and you want to support veterans in your local community, I'd encourage you to reach out to us. You can do all of those things on our website at phhusa.org. You can just simply do a Google search or DuckDuckGo wherever you do your search engine work at. You can do that of Purple Heart Homes, and you're certain to find us.
Mm.
And check out our website. Look at the chapters that are doing the work in Mississippi and South Carolina and Virginia and Ohio and all over the country, and figure out how you can get involved. You can make a contribution, whether that's a one-time donation. You can join our monthly giving club, or what we call the Hearts of Honor Club. You can get involved in an event, or you can host an event to be able to raise funds for veterans in your community.
So you said chapters. Do you guys do stuff like give an example of one of those events, the fundraising
Yeah,
event?
it can be anything from a golf tournament to a ruck event to, I mean, if you wanted to, it could even be a hog hunting competition, right? And it's all sorts of things, car shows, you name it, and we've seen it done. We've got a young college student right now that's throwing, he's a baseball pitcher, and he's, for every strikeout he throws, he's committed $23 to donate to Purple Heart Homes.
Mm.
A sponsor's come along and said, hey, we'll match it as a corporate partner, and so now there's $46 for every strikeout thrown. Well, this kid's thrown two no hitters in the last couple weeks, and so it's a
uh,
pretty good deal, right?
uh,
We got a race car driver who's a two-time champion for his series, for Carolina Crate Modifieds, and for every lap led, he's donating $1 to the charity, and for every race won, he's donating $250.
mm.
There's all types of ways that people can get involved.
I think I would go broke if I like gave $10 for every pig that I shot.
That's a lot of
I'm
pigs.
shooting these for veterans. I like the idea though. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Okay, cool. So lots of ways to support you guys. You can certainly be creative and think outside of the box there.
that's right.
Very cool. Um, what about as far as, and there's a lot of these organizations that take veterans into the great outdoors, whether that's hunting, fishing, backpacking, whatever. And I think those are very important. Obviously, giving them a home, probably a little bit more significant. But I do think the outdoors is beneficial in helping the healing process for a lot of these guys. I mean, I've been on a couple. Well, they were hog hunts, and I've seen these dudes get open up emotionally, which I don't. A lot of these are hard guys, right? And they're not super emotional. But for someone to take the time to take them on something as simple as a fishing trip or whatever it is, means the world to them.
I completely agree. It's just therapeutic. It's healing. It's the camaraderie aspect, right? It's all the things that are a part of living a life well lived, right? It's this idea of, what am I living for, but to enjoy, what's around me, whether that be
Mm,
my family or the outdoors, whether that be my friends, or whether that be a sport that I enjoy. And in so many ways we see the home as the base, right? It's the foundation. And so we want the veterans to have a safe, accessible home, so that while they're outside, they're not worrying about what they're going home to.
mm,
We want them to have, a safe, accessible home, so that they don't feel guilty when they go out hunting, but they're thinking about their spouse or their children being in the home that may not be healthy, right?
mm,
When we think about a leaky roof that you can't afford to replace, and yet now there's mold in the house, and so now the house is unhealthy, but your kids are sitting there, and they're breathing that unhealthy air, and it's getting ready to rain, but your buddies want to take you hunting, or somebody in your community wants to take you hunting. How can you go do that and not have
mm,
that in the back of your mind, right?
right.
And
Mm,
so that's where we really see these two pieces as being connected. That, it's great to take them out hunting and fishing and to do those things, but we also can't overlook the need that they have in their home.
yeah, for sure. It's like putting the cart before the horse. Um, well, very cool. As we're wrapping things up here, have you been able to get to Texas? I know you've done some hog hunting. Have you actually gone fishing with Cody, or our mutual friend?
I have. I gotta say though, it's not very fun. I think Cody's got some type of secret line of communication with the fish, that his bait barely touches the water, and the fish are fighting to get on his lure, and I'm still
Uh,
trying to get my lure in the water. He
yeah,
catches two
he's
to
a good
every one.
fisherman. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I Cody and I have been friends. I've been doing this for 15 years, and for anyone listening that doesn't know, Cody Robertson's the founder of Army Bass Anglers, and we started working together to promote their mission. Next thing you know, he's invited me to ride out on the ceremonial first, like the launch of the Bassmaster Classic. He's like, "Come on, you'll go on the first boat with the American flag." I mean, I'm not obviously fishing in the thing; it's for the best anglers in the world, which I am not by any stretch of the imagination. But it was super cool to, like, they're playing the Star Spangled Banner, and now I'm on the lead boat going out to open up the Super Bowl of fishing, essentially. And that was when I think maybe I've been doing this like a year, so it was pretty awesome at the time to I don't know. I don't get really starstruck at this point, but being around all those anglers who I was familiar with and had interviewed some of them, I was like, man, this is the coolest thing ever. But so yeah, I was like, Cody knows people, Cody knows he knows people, he knows
Well,
how to get stuff done, and so we've been friends for quite some time.
what I'll say about Cody is, it's not that he knows people. It's not that he knows how to get things done, but he's got a heart of gold
Mm,
of taking care of people. And I think that that's the magnetism that brings all the good things through Cody. He is just such a salt of the earth guy, and uh, I don't think I've ever seen him without his cowboy hat on. That might have a little bit to do with it, but no, he's just really a great human being, and
right
a
on.
great American patriot and veteran himself.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I certainly appreciate the time, John. It's awesome what you guys are doing, and I appreciate your service. And I do want to say one other thing. I saw this on your website, and I thought, oh, I don't want to say profound, but it's solid advice. You know, I'll say thanks if someone's wearing a Vietnam hat, right? I'll be like, hey, thanks for your service. And they're like, oh, yeah, thanks for mentioning it. But that's usually where the conversation ends. And on your
Mhm.
website, it's like, ask them where they served, when they served, have a conversation with them. And I think that's the next step. And of course, they like to be acknowledged, right? I mean, that means something
Sure.
to them. It's better than nothing. But if you really want to make their day, maybe have a conversation with the guy. or gal.
Yeah. And I encourage people all the time too that if you don't know what to ask, I promise you, every veteran has a funny story to tell. Just ask them, "What's something
Yeah.
funny that
Uh-huh.
you remember about your time in service?" And I promise they'll have you rolling laughing because there's lots of funny stories.
Well, I'm going to do that. So solid advice there. Thanks for giving back. We certainly appreciate it. And I believe we will, I think we're going to reconnect uh, somewhat frequently going forward. So if not with you,
Thanks
then
so much, Caleb.
someone, yeah. All right. Well, have a great day. Thanks again.
Hey, thank you.
All right.